following reading contains scenes and elements that may be disturbing to some viewers. If you are watching this, don't say we didn't warn you. Chapter 1. If I can't have my dream, you can't either. Fillies and gentle colts, we are proud to present to you the Wonderbolts live and in show. Now before we get to the main event, we have a very special guest here this evening. Put your hooves together for DJ Pone 3. The crowd burst out in a flurry of claps as the crowd prepared for the well-known DJ to show exactly what she had in store for the Los Pegasus attendance tonight. Rainbow stared at the ticket in front of her as she held it between both her hooves. She was given it by the Wonderbolts, a free showing to the new tricks that her idols had managed to create. To be here on this day would have been one of the best days of her in her life. The only problem was the rejection that she had to endure. Her magenta eyes scanned the roads as the darkness was slowly starting to engulf Equestria. Ponies were attempting to go to bed, if the large amount of cheering and explosions didn't keep them up. Rainbow, on the other hand, remained on the side of the road. As Spitfire's words echoed in her mind. "I'm sorry, Rainbow Dash. You've got a lot of guts and moves. But you weren't the kind of person we want in our group." Her light blue hooves ripped the ticket in two as she let it fall into the ground and eventually decompose, just like your dreams. Her eyes were tearing up, and she quickly stood up and trotted in between two buildings so that she could think to herself. Rabbits moved past her and quickly exited the alleyway, moving in between holes that they created or out onto the street. She fell to her knees and finally yelled out. Her frustrations, not a lot of the fireworks going off, indicated that Vinyl Scratch had finished her song. Rainbow was beat down on the concrete, while her tears formed a bit-sized puddle on the floor. The large amount of gunk and dirt that amassed on her hooves due to her current disgusting environment didn't matter to her. All that mattered were her dreams. Her wings remained clenched against her figure, as if she was embarrassed that they existed. She wasn't allowed to the top of the ladder. What was the point of flying if that was the case? These thoughts radiated through her mind, which only made her more depressed. She had given the Wonderbolts her all, and yet despite her years of training, she had gotten nowhere. What was the point of asking Pinkie for the ticket in the first place? There was none now. She couldn't go any higher than the ceiling that she acquired. That's what she thought, which unfortunately only escalated this hurricane of emotions. She wanted to go into the nearest bar, drink her troubles away so that she wouldn't have to think about them. But she came here with no money. Her intention was to come to Los Pegasus, pass the Wonderbolt test, and then go home. There wasn't a backup plan, just in case she failed the test. Rainbow's mind started to flash back as she remembered all of the previous events in which she was able to see the Wonderbolts. The gala struck out most in her mind. What if she wasn't able to talk to the Wonderbolts on that terrible night because they didn't want to talk to her? Surely her apple pie would be noticeable to Soren. But he didn't bat an eye at her once the crowd started to surround him. Even her fake capture of that old cult garnered no result. Spitfire surrounded herself with fans, which conveniently placed her away from Rainbow. The two were unable to talk the entire night after she was invited to her side of the gala. It was expected that Rainbow would leave. They thought she was a loser. The tornado that she had created with all the pay was surely a perfect example of competence in high speeds and synchronization. She rallied the entire city of Pegasi into one group, formulated a group system with similar systems created for positions, and still managed to bring all the water to Cloudsdale, even when there were dozens of Pegasi absent. The tiles were still created. At the same time, Spitfire was sitting on the sidelines, not even bothering to help with the water tornado. Maybe she wanted the Ponyville to reach a goal without her help, or maybe she didn't care. She could be thinking that Ponyville citizens didn't deserve her help. that during the wedding between Cadence and Shining Armor, she had managed to train herself to create a sonic rainbow by herself. She remembered the color as it faded through the city, marking the kiss between the bride and the groom. The Wonderbolts were able to see that. Did they even bother to factor that into their opinion of her? Not a single Wonderbolt member created Sonic Rainbow. Now that she was denied from the group, the purpose remained unclear. How could they think such a thing? Rainbow Dash trained her entire life, trying to emulate their moves so that she could make them better, and as a result, created a better version of the Wonderbolt, where she was included. She wasn't a loser. Rainbow avoided egghead habits. She was a very good athlete, and she was known all throughout Equestria as the one who won the best young flyers competition. She was all around awesome. How was she not accepted? Her tears stopped as she realized the possibility. Maybe the Wonderbolts were jealous and didn't want to incorporate her acts because they were too hard for them. A small smirk moved across her face as she realized that it wasn't her fault that was the problem. It was them. She stood up. While her hooves were wiped off on her chest. Of course it was them, she finally said after a half hour of no speaking. Should I be surprised? Of course the losers would be jealous of my skills, because they don't have any that are good as mine. As her smirk grew wider, she walked out of the alleyway. Before heading in the direction of the express train towards Ponyville, she could put on her own shows and make money that way, along with doing her weather duties on the side. That way, she would become popular with two different mediums. It was genius. Unlike those posers who denied her the chance to grace them with her awesomeness, who pushed against the train seat, annoying the one who sat in front of her. As the anger started to swirl all through her again, forming a volatile maelstrom, if she had the chance, she would hurt those Wonderbolts, shattering her dreams and trying to put her down. Of course, they would insult her skills and tell her she wasn't capable. They were capable of being hurt themselves. Rainbow's wings flexed up and down, making sure that she wasn't ashamed of them anymore, and the anger started to mix with excitement. She would show them. Her events would gather everyone from Equestria, all three princesses, and the Crystal Kingdom as well. The Wonderbolt would become washed out and unable to match her. She expected apologies when the Wonderbolts were out of money and unable to fly anymore. That would be something to sing about when Spitfire flew to her to apologize. Maybe a dunce hat or shaving her fur off. That would be equivalent to shattering her dreams. The anger and excitement started to boil around as she thought about letting them into her team. The Rainbows, before denying it, didn't deserve such an honor. Her eyes slowly closed as she rode the train. Travel time was 2.5 hours. A combination of Sonic Rainbow and a Wonderbolt had tired her out. The revenge could wait for a time being. She could rest and contemplate more when she got home. Chapter 2. Rainbow Dash! Hey, Rainbow Dash! The scratchy voice whispered in her ear. Rainbow Dash's eyes opened and she blinked a few times. The pain in her eyes from her lack of sleep told her that she slept the entire time. But she would have slept more if she wasn't woken up by this annoying Scootaloo? The orange filly was standing right next to her, poking her so that she woke up. The conductor alerted everyone on the train that it was going to leave in 10 minutes. Rainbow sat up and cracked her neck, before looking into the orange filly's eyes with indifferent expression. She enjoyed the attention that she got from that filly, but it was kind of annoying when Scootaloo didn't know what boundaries were. Rainbow got up, and without acknowledging the fillies, walked off the train and started towards her house. Scootaloo trailed behind the light blue mare on the scooter, her hoof pushing down every now and again to keep her going. So, Rainbow, did the Wonderbolts accept you? She asked, her head turning to look around at the darkness of the trees. Despite how scary it must be to be walking around in pitch black, there was a certain peaceful quality to it. Rainbow Dash did not feel the same way, and Scootaloo's question immediately moved to her nerves, testing them. That really isn't any of your business, now is it? Rainbow replied. Gulu was taken back, her purple eye whining from the hurtful response. She moved an inch away from the mare, but continued to scoot along while they walked. I take it that means no. What was your first clue? Rainbow said in her rejoinder, her hooves tensing up as she walked along with her temper. The Spitfire's rejection played over in her head. She wasn't Wonderbolt material. Her moves were nice, but she didn't have the right attitude to be accepted. You don't have to be so mean about it. I'm just asking. School looked ahead on the sidewalk. You, look, kid. Just because you are leader of my fan club doesn't mean that you can just bug me whenever you want, Rainbow responded. I didn't get accepted into the Wonderbolts, but don't start yelling it towards your friend just because it happened. I like having a little fuzzy, you know? I never said I was going to yell it towards my friends. Well, good, Rainbow said as she stopped walking and stared at the small one. Scooter winced in fear. She moved onto the other side of the scooter, the footrest between both of them. She looked down, and Rainbow Dash growled. I'm sorry, Rainbow Dash. I don't need your pity. I deserve to be on the Wonderbolt. I don't want to have the fightless waste of space bugging me. Scooter bit her lip. Her eyes started to get hazy. These were just words. They wouldn't be able to hurt her. But the word flightless remained with her, replaying in her head. A tear fell onto the ground, and her voice quivered as she spoke. Just because you're good at flying doesn't mean you get to make fun of people that aren't. I know Spitfire didn't make fun of you when you weren't accepted. Rainbow's right eye twitched, and her hoof slammed into Scootaloo's nose. The force of the punch pushed the filly onto her back. A sickening crunch was heard from the impact of the punch, and Scootaloo could feel a hot flood leaking down her cheek. The burning sensation of pain was flooding her body, and the Scootaloo fell over onto her stomach so that it wasn't being held anymore. Tears were now freely leaking down her face, mixing in with the blood droplets that started to coat the ground. She sniffed, but only felt the hot liquid clogging up her nose, along with the pain of her actual broken nose. All of it was done in one punch. Rainbow had broken her nose and her spirit. If only that would be the light blue mare's response. She wasn't done. She stood over the orange mare and looked down at the mesh that she drew. Get up, Rainbow said as she wiped the blood from her hoof onto her chest. Scootaloo's eyes could barely see the amorphous mask that lingered above her. The combined pain of her nose and her heart were unable to give her a reason to get up. Her back hoof slowly bent so that she could try and get back up, but there was a pain in her back as Rainbow's back hoof smashed into her side. This time there was no crunching noise, but the pain was now radiated through her side instead of just her nose. A yell came from the filly, and she cried out along with some sputtering in her cry. Please, Rainbow Dash, stop. Shut up, Rainbow responded. She looked down the coiling mass that was her insulter. Shut up and get up, I dare you. Scootaloo cried out another time, and as the two hot fluids leaked down her face. I don't want to get up. I don't want to fight you, Scootaloo said as she laid there on her side. One of Rainbow's eyebrows raised, and then she started to walk in a circle around the hurt filly. You were fighting me back there. You insisted on bugging me about what happened. Then you did want to shut up when I gave you a few clues, but I didn't shut up, Rainbow yelled. She lightly kicked Scootaloo onto her back before stomping on her chest. The beginning pressure of the stomp knocked the wind out of Scootaloo, and she attempted to breathe through her nose, while remembering the pain that came with it. She was able to stare up into those magenta eyes, which showed something that she had never seen before: hatred. Rainbow Dash hated her, although it was never shown until now. Scootaloo was willing to guess that this was the gaze directed to her when she was not looking at Rainbow. Her heart started to break as one of her dreams of eventually flying up in the sky with Rainbow Dash, falling behind her and forming an awesome move in the air, became unobtainable. Scootaloo managed to breathe through her mouth, but she wasn't able to speak before Rainbow interrupted. You are a useless pony. What kind of Pegasus is not able to fly? Rainbow asked. The hoof applied more pressure onto her victim's chest. I've seen boys after age are able to flap their wings and fly. You can't fly, and you are a teenager. Gulu's tears continued to fall as she sniffed blood back into her nose and breathed through her mouth. With any more pressure, her ribs were going to crack. Although at this point, Gulu couldn't stop her idol from doing whatever she wanted. I bet you won't get your cutie mark at all. Tweedledee already got hers, and it's something that's at least useful. But Scootaloo paused, waiting for Rainbow Dash to interrupt her and hurt her more. However, the mayor decided to humor her. Although Scootaloo knew she wasn't going to have her point made by saying this, she couldn't be pushed around like this any longer. I'm going to get a cutie mark, and I'll be the best scooter flyer in all of Equestria. Rainbow Dash almost bursted up laughing. She held her stomach with one hoof and moved off of the filly, letting her breathe for a few moments. She took the filly's scooter in hooves and looked at it over as if she was determined to. You mean this thing? You would throw me when you can't even fly without a special device? Are you retarded? Rainbow asked. Scootaloo's eyes gazed over once more, and she slowly moved back onto her hooves. But the moment of standing wasn't going to last for long. The pain started at her head before splitting throughout all of her body in one devastating motion. The wood from her own scooter broke under the force of the impact, and Scootaloo flew back 2 feet onto her back. A shot of a scooter, which contained the board and the wheel, had shot off into the darkness of the forest, while Rainbow was still holding the handlebar. Scootaloo felt nothing but pain. At this point, there was really no difference between continuing the punishment and letting her lay there. A cut ran from the left side of her forehead all the way up down to her brow, and was leaking more blood onto the ground. Her head felt like it was being split open, probably because of the concussion and the cracked skull which she was now enduring. If only the heat of the blood was capable of relieving her head pain, because she wouldn't feel any sick if that was the case. Slowly, her head was starting to be covered in blood. The cuts in her nose, along with the placement of her head, was making the blood leak across her face and onto the ground. Her hooves were flat on the floor as she lay there, her eyes spacing out, nothing standing out in particular. You couldn't see a thing, only a blurry combination of luminous, beautiful stars and the blood, which ran over her eyes and made her close them. Rainbow laughed a little bit as she looked at the falling fillies. That got some air, she said as she slowly walked over to school. Sue's head tilted to the right, and as the blood loss was finally getting to her. Her thoughts were slowing down. She accepted her lack of vision. Small amorphous lines swirled around in her closed vision as the small clop noises Rainbow Dash approaching grew louder and louder. Now as the light-blue mare stood over her victim once more, she looked at Scootaloo's wings, which were tucked into her body. Rainbow bent herself back down and grabbed Scootaloo's wings before spreading them out, holding them down with her back wing. Her right front hoof was holding the broken set of handlebars, which she lifted up in the air before placing the other front hoof on top of the bar. The slowing of her eyes and the view was enough to make her give up. Princess Celestia allowed this kind of thing to happen? Did you not know that sometimes there wasn't always harmony in the world? If someone had talked to Rainbow before she snapped, then Scootaloo would have to suffer this much. She couldn't blame Celestia. This would have happened to anyone. It was a shame that it had to be someone who couldn't defend herself. But she gritted her teeth as she brandished her weapon of choice. I guess if your wings are not going to make you fly, then why don't we break them off? She asked as her hooves applied more pressure to Scootaloo's wings so that she couldn't break out. They are useless anyway, just like you. And when I attempted to thrust her handlebar, but her action was met with another crunch. A tooth was knocked out of her mouth. She flew backwards and slammed into a tree before her eyes closed. She was effectively knocked out. Scootaloo was able to see an orange blur in the vision before her head was straightened and green eyes were staring into her. Stay with me, Sugar Cube. When did I get you into a hospital? She heard. A smile formed across Scootaloo's face. She would have shook her head if she was able to. I don't need to go to the hospital. I prefer dying right here, she said as her eyes closed. A smile from, Hey, Skulu, Sugar Cube, Skulu! Chapter 3. Pinky brought out a large tray of cupcakes, a giggle coming from her as the parents of the party smiled and thanked her for the treat. The room was decorated with a mixture of orange and purple, with a large 7 highlighted on the main decoration in the house. Hanging from the ceiling as a piñata, Skulu smiled as she rummaged through the large amount of presents that she was given, wondering which one she should open first. Her father smiled and pointed towards a longer present, which Skulu picked up and opened. Inside was a beautiful scooter, the handlebar folded down so that it could be stored easily. Her eyes widened as she looked at this present, and she ran over to her father, wrapping her arms around him. "Thank you, Dad! Thank you! Thank you!" she said, screaming with excitement as she trotted over to her scooter, pulling the handlebar into a vertical position, then sped around the room. She managed to hop over a filly who was eating her cupcake on the ground. Skulu's parents were about to scold her before the birthday girl laughed and jumped off her new present. "I can get used to this. I don't need to fly."